The Berkley Gulp Power Bait says it has a 55% greater catch rate. Is that true or is it false advertising? Well, today I'm going to go through some trout fishing tips on how to fish the Gulp Power Bait, the different colors and scent combinations that you can use in different conditions, and answer the question, does it catch trout at a 55% greater rate? What is up, Outdoor Mavericks? Welcome back to the channel, where today we're talking about Gulp Trout Power Bait from Berkley. This is kind of the fortified and the step level up of Power Bait. Now, the difference between regular Power Bait and the Gulp Power Bait from Berkley is this has the Gulp bites in it and has scent dispersion in the water, meaning when you fish this in the water, the scent is going to spread out in the water, which means that the trout are going to have an easier time finding this and smelling this in the water and going after your bait versus normal trout power bait. Now let's break down the Gulp Trout Power Bait color and scent combinations. There are 7 different colors that you can find in stores and online. There's American Pie, Chunky Chartreuse, Orange Pulp, Marshmallow Cluster, Rainbow Candy, Sherbet Blast, and Chunky Cheese, which is one of my favorites. Now it also comes in 3 different scent combinations, which is garlic, salmon egg, and the OG scent. Now the garlic comes in 3 colors, the salmon egg comes in 2 colors, and the OG scent comes in all 7 of the colors. Now, the biggest difference between the Gulp Power Bait and the regular Power Bait is the Gulp bites, which are more attracted to the trout, and there's scent dispersion in the water. So when the bait hits the water, whether you're plunking it off the bottom or you're fishing it underneath the bobber, the scent from that bait is going to spread out in the water versus the regular Power Bait, which is a lot more compact, and the scent isn't going to disperse off the bait and those particles getting all over the water where the trout can smell it, say, from a longer distance away. Now, when it comes to trout fishing tips with the Gulp, here are like 5 things that I would recommend if you're gonna fish with this bait. Firstly, they're very glitter heavy, which means on overcast days and on days where you're kind of in between overcast and sunny, that glitter is going to make that bait bling in the water and be seen from a long distance away. I mean, these jars are packed with flavor and Gulp bites, but they have a ton of glitter. Don't ask me how I know. It'll get everywhere. Now, the other thing about the Gulp is it does come in very bright colors. You kind of have that candy, that rainbow sherbet colors, but also more of those natural colors in terms of the Chunky Cheese and the marshmallow that are a little bit more white and a little bit more tan, kind of that cheese light brown color. And so you can have different combinations of bright baits, also very dull and very natural baits, which is great because you can fish them in different situations with having a couple different jars between the light and the more natural colors. And then when it talks about scent profile with these baits, you open the jar and they absolutely smell. Even the OG, the garlic, and the salmon egg, you pop the lid off of the jar and the smell is just poignant. I mean, it is strong, like a big shot of whiskey going down. I mean, it is just strong. And that's a good thing because as the scent is spreading out in the water, the trout are absolutely going to be able to find it. But it also increases your hookup ratio. And this is big because with a stronger scent profile in the bait, when you're fishing a stock pond or an area where there's a lot of other anglers, this bait is going to stand out because it's going to be a lot more smelly and there's going to be a lot more scent dispersion in the water, which means the trout are going to go more towards your bait than other anglers' baits. Now, another tip when fishing the Gulp is you want to fish the bright colors absolutely on overcast days, but don't be afraid to fish them on sunny days in grassy areas. You know, that scent, even in grassy spots, the trout might not be able to see the bait right away, but they might be able to smell it, which can give you an advantage. Now, the next tip has to do with the marshmallow and the Chunky Cheese colored baits. Now, one of the things we always talk about is the hatchery pellets that the trout get fed at the hatcheries are usually a light brown or kind of a more natural color. Now, they're normally corn scented, but with the Chunky Cheese and the marshmallow colored baits, these are the closest colors when it comes to the trout pellets from the hatchery. And what I found over the years fishing with the different Gulp colors is those 2 colors in particular fish extremely well when it comes to stock trout fishing. The next tip is the 3 colors that I love the most, which are Chunky Cheese, the sherbet, and the marshmallow. I would say if you could only pick 2 or 3, those would be it, because you get a spectrum of bright colors and more natural colors, but those baits fish a lot of different situations and a lot of situations really well, whether it's off-colored water, whether it's super clear water, whether it's sunny, cloudy, it's a rainy day, which that Sherbert is amazing when it's raining outside. Now the last tip with this bait is, if you want to, on normal power baits, add a little bit of the gulp to your normal power bait when you create that little ball on the hook. Even just a little bit of gulp can go a long ways and add a different scent profile. You don't have to fish just like all the gulp on the hook at one time. You can add a little bit of gulp to, say, maybe the corn or chartreuse garlic power bait or something else, to get some different combinations and add that little bit of gulp scent in there, and it could go a long ways to going and getting a lot of hookups in one day. Now the one thing with gulp that's very different from the traditional power bait that we've talked about on the channel is the gulp is a lot more expensive. You know, at my local store, we're talking about a jar of gulp power bait that costs, you know, between $5 to $7 depending on the local store that you're going to. Now the normal power bait can sometimes be like $2.50 when it's on sale, even up to maybe $4. A definite difference in price range when it comes to the gulp versus the normal power bait jars that you get at the store. Now the ultimate question is it worth the extra dollars for the gulp, and does it have an actual 55% greater catch rate? That's the ultimate question. The answer? I think the answer is yes. It definitely is worth it. When I went back and looked at my trout fishing logs from the last 3 years when I used the gulp, here's what I learned. Firstly, on days that I used the gulp stock trout fishing, I never got blanked, which is always good. We always want to catch some fish and we hate getting skunked. Not getting blanked when using gulp, that's actually pretty incredible. Secondly, I got multiple fish on all those trips that I used, which means when the stock trout were there, even weeks after planting, they were going after the gulp really well. Thirdly, on days and areas on lakes and ponds where there was other anglers out there, where there's a lot more competition and other fishermen out there, the gulp did better versus everybody else. When I was seeing who was catching fish, I was catching the most out of everybody else on the days that I was using gulp. Then nextly, on really slow days, say weeks or months after a place has been stocked where maybe there's only a couple fish around, on those days when I fished and used the gulp, I definitely got the bites and definitely got the fish, which means when those stock trout are getting used to their environment and the area after they've been stocked, they're a little bit less hesitant and maybe not as going after the bait as much. But on those days when I used the gulp, I got the bites and I got the trout. Finally, when it comes to fishing the gulp versus the normal power bait head to head, this is where some days they were a little bit more even, and that probably had to do with that the trout were recently stocked. But on days, weeks, say days or weeks after a place has been stocked, when I use the gulp and use the regular power bait on those days, the gulp actually did a little bit better than regular power bait. Now again, the regular power bait has a lot of different colors and a lot of different scent combinations that you can use, but when fished head to head with my 2-rod endorsement, the gulp held up and actually got a lot more bites. I think over, the numbers really showed it was like 119 to about, I think, like 70 when it comes to those numbers. Now, maybe not 55%, but they say on the jar, but that just tells me that the gulp does a lot better than the normal power bait on those days that fish it. Again, we're talking environment, situational, where you're fishing, but when you look at the numbers and you're seeing a greater hookup and land ratio with the gulp than the regular power bait, that tells me that the gulp is something that you really want to fish. It's going to get you more bites and it's going to get you more trout in the net, and it's going to get you faster limits, whether it's days after recently stocked ponds or weeks or maybe even months after a place has gotten a stocking of trout. So ultimately, is it catch 55% more fish? I don't have the exact analytics or numbers to back that up, but based off of what I looked in my logs, the number of trout that I caught on the days fishing the gulp and looking at those days versus other baits that I caught, absolutely 100% the gulp does catch more trout and helps you get faster limits. So if you've never used gulp power bait, or if you're looking for something on slower days, or just something that maybe is going to help you catch more trout throughout the season or throughout the year, grab some gulp power bait from Berkley. Grab yourself a couple colors. Again, I like Sherbert, I like the chunky cheese, and I like the marshmallow colors as a starting point to help you catch more trout when you get out on the water. So thank you guys for watching today. today's trout fishing tips video all about Gulp power bait. Hit the thumbs up on that video, hit that subscribe button down below if you're new to the channel, and as always, you guys, the outdoors is a gift, share it with others.